Reading this, Oxfam, 10 U.S. billionaires have had their wealth increase sixfold since 2020. No, I know. It's just like capitalism creates this incredible consolidation of wealth. And basically the number of winners gets smaller and smaller every fucking year because that's just how the system is designed. And eventually it's just going to be like one guy who is the quintrillionaire. And even the other billionaires are like, we don't have enough money. We're suffering. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. And even within the top 10% of wealth, the wealth consolidation still continues. Ironically enough, in the top 10% of wealth, they are the people, myself included obviously in this bracket, are living highfalutin, fancy lifestyles, okay? At a time when there is like tremendous pain and tremendous struggle for regular ass working class people, okay? But even within the top 10% of wealth, even there is a tremendous amount of wealth consolidation happening there as well for the top 1% in the top 10% of wealth. It is insane. That's why you see articles that are brain breaking. I saw something about like a woman who left her Google job where she was making $369,000 a year and how she was able to secure $1.5 million in retirement funds to be able to retire early. And it's like, really? This is what we're talking about? Oh yeah, just get a Google job for $369,000 a year so you can actually retire. It's that easy. It's that simple. Meanwhile, you got people that are working, 10 years on their job with no prospects of getting no prospects of career advancement, and retirement seems impossible. It's incredible stuff. Let's see what Robert Reich is saying here. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. This is a huge problem, and even America's most powerful CEOs are starting to sound the alarm. Oh, yeah, the McDonald's CEO was complaining about this.
The Big Mac has a big problem.
Robble.
According to the CEO of McDonald's, fast food chain saw a double-digit dip in visits from lower and middle-income customers in the first quarter of 2025. The reason? Customers can't afford it.
Holiday spending reached a record sum this year. You are exaggerating a bit. Okay, once again, you have to look at who's doing the expenditure, who's doing the spending, because that doesn't change what I'm talking about. Again, the top 10% of wealth is responsible for 50% of all consumption in this country now. Okay, the top 10% of wealth. That means the bottom 90%. The bottom 90% is only responsible for half of all consumption in this country. That's insane.
While the stock market is riding high and the Trump administration is slashing taxes for corporations.
Yeah, spending is up, except items purchased is down. Spending is up, and yet the number of people spending is down. I wonder how that happened. Perhaps inflation might have something to do with it. I don't know.
Nothing is trickling down to everyday Americans.
What we see is it's really kind of a two-tier economy. If you're upper income, earning over $100,000, things are good. What we see with middle and lower income consumers is actually a different story.
This shouldn't be all that surprising. The warning signs were there for anyone paying attention.
We are on the way to becoming a two-tiered society, composed of a few winners and a larger group of Americans left behind.
The other side of this story, of course, is debt. The other side of this story is debt. Because, yeah, also saw a breakdown showing huge percentage of holiday spending was financed by using buy now, pay later apps. You got Klarna. You can do advanced payday loans to purchase Domino's in this country. And you're out here being like, well, spending is up technically. Okay, so is debt. None of this is good. I feel like all of this is alarm bells ringing. I know a lot of chatters have made jokes about how I have not had a credit card for most of my life and refused to get it. Okay, but there is a principle behind that too. It's not even like an ethical thing. It's just that I've I've always had the mentality where it's like the idea that I have to like take on debt specifically so that people can realize that like or institutions can recognize that I'm good with the debt is so stupid. And it's weird because like must be nice. No, I'm talking about when I was broke, dude. What the like this structure is entirely different elsewhere, okay? This structure is entirely different elsewhere where if you don't have a credit card in the United States of America, you are not a part of the system. You're not a part of the credit scoring system. They punish you for not having a credit card, right? So technically, even if you are spending only as much as you have, okay, without taking on debt, and ironically enough, the appropriate way to do this is by taking on debt, but only as much as you can pay for it, right? But there is no need for that additional middleman there. There's no, like, there should be, Hasan, you were not broke? Okay. No, I was. I know that a lot of people say that that's not the case, but I absolutely was. It's so crazy that this is, oh my God. I do not have a billionaire parent, you losers, okay? Oh my Lord. It's so funny because all of this is straight up on camera, okay? I know, but you still were not. I got money back from the American government my first year of employment, okay? I don't know why people think that they know better than myself about my actual existence, my living circumstances. I lived in the kitchen of a frat house the first year I lived here. Even at the point where I was on Twitch, I was making 60 grand a year, which is literally nothing for Los Angeles, okay? With 3 roommates. Anyway, none of this actually matters. People think you're saying you grew up poor. No, I didn't grow up poor. I never said I grew up poor. I grew up very affluent. I'm talking about the period of my life when I was in college. Or post-college, rather. In any case, at that point, simply because your parents had money, people will say you couldn't have been broke, regardless of whether you had access to it all the time. No, but my parents also no longer had money by the time I got to college. So it's wrong. It's something that I've talked about quite a bit. Anyway. Regardless, I don't know why we're talking about this. It's so stupid. Yeah, there's like clips that you can find from back then.
Just like getting this chicken out of the little container. And unfortunately, a lot of people use like organic chicken and whatnot. I use whatever kind of chicken I can get because I'm not very wealthy. So that's part of the reason. This is like a very...
No, but I'll have you know, I was actually lying. I was faking it. I was actually a billionaire at this point. But I just chose to lie and continue along with this lie by living with 3 roommates at the time. It was a deep 5-head infiltration move. You know? Lol, that is the kitchen of a rich person? Yeah, exactly.
It's like a very cheap alternative. But it tastes really good. It has really good macros. So that's literally why I do it. It's one way I've been able to lose so much weight. And I know so many people ask this all the time, which is why I'm doing this right now and I'm talking about it. So yeah, this is already like a difficult process, guys. To like get this chicken, to free this chicken from its boundaries, while also trying to describe to you the process in which I
Chat is being so annoying today. Holy shit, this is why the community doesn't grow as much. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Anyway. Like all of this stuff is also like readily accessible for people who are wondering, you know, if you wanna see the background of Hasanabi Piker. But this is when I was like explaining the process of using manager special chicken. That's what I did to get high protein. I would eat chicken, but I would go to Ralph's or Pavilions and get manager special chicken, which was like about to expire. Roughly how many years ago was this? This is in like 2018, I think. But wait, how the why did I even talk about that? Why was I talking about this? How did we get here? Oh, we were talking about like, even ironically enough, at my brokest point, I didn't have a credit card at all. And then someone said I wasn't poor. I was never poor. Unless you're literally homeless, which is crazy. Yes, I was not like homeless or anything. Regardless, the process is different. The process is different. Like the smart way to do it, the adult way to take on debt, which is an absolute necessity in this country. Like, you have to take on debt, but debt that you can pay for. You have to take on debt that you can pay for, right? That's the smart way to do it. Like parents that educate their children on smart finances will tell them, like, you have to get a credit card, but you can only spend however much you can pay at the end of the month. Like, that's the appropriate way to do it. But in other countries, like, there is no middleman like that. There is no need to get a credit card at all, right? But unfortunately, the United States of America, if you want to rent a place even, you have to have credit. They check your credit. And when they check your credit score goes down. It's insane. And I know this from my, again, personal experience, because even when I started making a little bit of money on top of my regular salary at the Young Turks, it was like 60 grand by the time I was leaving TYT, I couldn't rent an apartment. I had to, if you guys remember, I talked about it at the time with like Enes. Do you remember Enes Yilmazar, the YouTube realtor guy, who's now like obviously a very famous YouTube realtor guy? Back then, he was just my friend who didn't even have a YouTube channel at the time. This guy, he was just a guy who had done real estate in the past in Los Angeles. He did not have 4.1 million subscribers at all, right? And I actually got help from him and snuck myself into the apartment in 2019, the one bedroom in West Hollywood, because he knew a person that was supposed to be checking the credit scores at the company that owned, like at the developer or the management company that owned the apartment complex, because I didn't have credit. I didn't have any credit. So there was no way for me to actually get an apartment at all. No way for me to actually rent an apartment at all in Los Angeles. It's insane. It's an insane system. Anyway, now Enes is also popping, which is so crazy to think, because I remember giving him, when he was like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, you can use my lights. And I gave him my, the light boxes that I had. And he was like filming stuff from his, filming stuff from his like living room in his apartment. Anyway, are you still in touch with him? Yeah. I photoshopped my bank statements to get into an apartment in downtown LA. All right.
I said that in 1994. McDonald's had just lost an infamous lawsuit over scalding hot coffee, and I had way more hair. Frankly, it's a little galling to hear the CEO of McDonald's complaining about income inequality, especially because companies like McDonald's are making the problem worse.
It's coming from inside the house.
McDonald's and other Fortune 500 companies like Walmart are famous for underpaying workers. As a result, many workers at these two corporations have to rely on the rest of us to finance government programs like food stamps and Medicaid to make ends meet. Meanwhile, their CEOs are paid roughly 1,000 times more than their typical employee. Big corporations have a history of union busting, further reducing the power of...
How do other countries give out auto loans, phone subsidies, etc., then credit histories make sense for taking on debt? I don't know, but I don't think other countries have that same culture around debt. Like, that's what I was trying to say. I don't... Like, I think they just look at your income. I assume they just probably look at your income and see if you can pay for it.
Their workers to negotiate a living wage.
We don't think that a labor union is necessary.
All unions work at is taking a cut out of my pay.
In addition to taxpayers subsidizing corporations' low wages, there's a second way they burden the rest of us. Around 70% of the U.S. economy depends on consumer spending. As wealth concentrates in the richest 10%, the rest of America can't afford to buy enough to keep the economy running. Their buying power is dropping because of stagnant wages and inflation. The bottom 90% is already spending as much as they can, and in many cases going into debt to do so. Meanwhile, as the super rich become even richer, they can't possibly buy enough on their own to keep the economy running. We saw this trend before, during the roaring 1920s, when American wealth was concentrated at the top and everyone else had to go into debt to maintain their standard of living. When that debt bubble burst, we got the Great Depression. The so-called two-tiered economy isn't just a moral failing. It's dangerous for all of us. So what can we do about it?
The motion is adopted.
End the trickle-down hoax once and for all. Tax cuts for the wealthy make the rest of us worse off, not better. Fight for unions. Raise the minimum wage. Bust up big monopolies with the power to keep prices high. Demand corporations share their profits with workers, so that when corporations do better, their workers do too. Build an economy that works for everyone, not just those at the top. Because if we don't, we're all cooked.
Okay, but what about shareholder value for the super wealthy? Yeah, this is woke nonsense, I say. Anyway, speaking of woke nonsense, okay, speaking of woke nonsense, what is this? He probably didn't see the latest capitalist invention. What is this? You cooked this link. You mean shitholder value? Got him, chatter. Nice.
This is the story of a little piece of technology.
Oh, dynamic pricing. Yeah, goodbye price tags. Hello, dynamic pricing. Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. You know how like Uber does price surging and also boosts prices if you are a consistent big spender? Yeah, they have that. They're going to put that in grocery stores now. I know. It's an innovative way to drive up profit margins to the best of your abilities. Awesome. Chinese TikTokers are spitting Hasanabi.
Americans living in a superior lifestyle compared to Chinese. Dude, stop sending me these stupid messages. I'm 38 years old. If in my 20s, I may believe you. Also, I lived in California, Bay Area, 4 years. I see your homeless people. I see your middle class people. Okay, if you are a millionaire, you have good life in United States.
True.
When you want to compete two countries, people living standard, compare rich to rich, middle class to middle class, poor to poor. Your poor people sleeping on the street cannot afford fresh food. In China, the poor people sleep in their own home, able to afford everything basic human needs. All right? Electricity, internet, fresh food, just medical bills also. College even. You know, that's how affordable for our Chinese. And middle class, our middle class in China, their living standard probably better than your upper middle class. You never lived in China, dude. You need to wake the hell up.
Yeah, but can he afford Coca-Cola and Netflix? I mean, yeah, you can. But to be fair, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It tastes different when you're tasting it with freedom. Reading this, Oxfam, 10 U.S. billionaires have had their wealth increase sixfold since 2020. No, I know. It's just like capitalism creates this incredible consolidation of wealth, right? And basically the number of winners gets smaller and smaller every year. Okay? The number of people who are winning under capitalism gets smaller and smaller every year because that's just how the system is designed. And eventually it's just going to be like one guy who is the quintrillionaire, and even the other billionaires are like, we don't have enough money. We're suffering. It's awesome. So look forward to that. It'll probably be Elon fucking Musk. it's getting to a point where, like, you know, in America, millionaires are what remains of like the middle class existence in this country, and the actual middle class, the overwhelming majority of people, are relegated to what you would consider to be lower class, okay, like poorer than middle class. This doesn't mean that like millionaires are not doing great overall. They are. It's just that the way that wealth consolidation has worked makes it so that most of the people that you would consider middle class are now not doing middle class existence. Like, they don't have a similar material existence that the middle class had in like the 70s and 80s. It's awesome. Great stuff overall. We should just have one person own everything, I think. Yeah, the top 10% of wealth in this country is responsible for 50% of consumer spending, and not a single person thinks this is bad. Well, or at least not a single person in power thinks this system is like fundamentally busted. Okay? Jackson Hole and Alpine, Wyoming are great examples. The millionaires complain that the billionaires kicked them out of Jackson, and they have to build their $15 million mansions in Alpine now. Yeah. How about my system where God owns everything and there's one chosen man to control it, all on God's behalf? I mean, that's where we're moving towards. Yeah. What is this? Even the hyper rich are totally broke? I don't know
Late
what
last
this
month,
means.
a report published by Goldman Sachs caused a bit of a firestorm in the personal finance community when it found that 40% of people earning more than $500,000 a year were still living paycheck to paycheck.
Dude, this is so busted. It's just, I don't even understand how that's physically possible. I don't understand how that's physically possible. That is, it's the budget tweet. Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm spending $13,000 a month on candles. Please, someone help me budget this. My family is starving. Like, what are you doing? At that point, I would say, you know, cut down on the avocado toast, man, unless there's something going on here that I'm not aware of. But like, you got to do quality of life adjustments at that point. If you're making $500,000 a year and you're living paycheck to paycheck, there is something deeply wrong with your expenditure. IRL backpack. Yeah, this is ironically enough, this was when I was talking about how like I live within my own means as far as like way below my own means, and everybody yelled at me. If you remember, I got soft canceled for that a while back, which I meant like for how much money I make, I don't spend that much money. I know it sounds like it seems like I spend a lot of money, and in comparison to the average person, yes, I do spend a fuck ton of money. Except, you know, it's totally marginal in comparison to how much money I could be spending.
What was even more shocking is that from the same group of high-income earners...
I don't understand how you can just be paycheck to paycheck at $500,000. It doesn't make any sense.
Less than a third of them reported that they were consistently able to make contributions to long-term financial goals like paying down debt or saving for retirement. Now, I know it might be hard to feel too bad about the financial struggles of people earning 10 times the median income, and the general response to this report online was, not too sympathetic. But it does reveal a lot about the way our economy has changed since this report was first published just 10 years ago. Now, history is of course filled with endless stories about people who have blown through enormous fortunes, but these have been rare exceptions to the rule, and these stories have mostly come from athletes, celebrities, and lottery winners. People who make a lot of money in a short period of time and then get
Yeah, I think these guys are not like I guess they're not making wise investments in general, but then also beyond that, they probably have a lot of people, a lot of mouths that they're feeding. And if you noticed, the reason why a lot of athletes go broke is not necessarily because they're overspending or they have a lot of mouths to feed in general, but because they rely on their wage for their entire income. And unfortunately, in the United States of America, you cannot act like we call this financial illiteracy, right? But what we actually call financial illiteracy is ironically a byproduct of the wage labor structure not being designed for the wage labor structure that exists is not designed for financial security permanently. So a lot of regular ass working class people dunk on these people who make a fuck ton of money, right? Because they go, oh, they're so stupid. They're so financially illiterate. Oh, how dumb. Why didn't they actually move into some kind of passive earning, some kind of like capital accumulation structure? It's so funny. It's like, yeah, no, it's not supposed to be that way. Someone who's making, someone who's like generated $6 million of income over their lifetime through their wages, because athletes are still wage laborers. Okay. I know they make a lot. They're high earners, but they're still wage laborers nonetheless, should have a pension structure that allows them to still continue surviving. So what we call financial illiteracy is ironically the concept that these guys are not turning into the capital owning class. It's the darn stupid poor that don't understand the 1% struggles. No, you're so dumb. You're misunderstanding my point. It's the darn stupid poor that don't realize that the system is designed in a way where you have to become a capital accumulator. My point is, it shouldn't have to be that way. Not everyone should have to become a landlord so that they can have, so that we can, oh God, so that we can have any sort of like a nest egg, right? Any sort of retirement fund. Dog, someone who makes $6 million is not a 1%er. No, I'm saying $6 million in lifetime earnings. You constantly critique the extraction of surplus value, yet you retain 100% equity in your brand, even if you're paid as well. You are still a private owner, dictating the distribution of profit rather than a co-op. How are you not just a benevolent capitalist perpetuating the exact labor structure you critique? It's because I am a capitalist, and also I am doing that. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite socialist. Have you not realized this already? Although I do have a co-op, but it doesn't matter. That's besides the point. Okay? You got it. You got it. I am a benevolent capitalist. Not even a benevolent capitalist. I'm actually a bad capitalist. I'm the worst kind. The point is that the entire structure that is designed in the United States of America is that you are supposed to wait. What the weekly Hasanabi heads meetup in Chengdu over 3 years? Wait, really? And they're grilling meats? Whoa. Wait, is this for real? How come I wasn't invited? Things we do include prepare Szechuan chicken noodles for 100 people on the street in under 20 minutes every week and share with the local workers just for the challenge for more than 3 years. Hiking, biking, football, soccer, open mic, camping and grilling, techie stuff, competitive FPV, drone flying, assembling, radio comms, math programming, food cooking, food eating, food sharing, any other grassroots mobilizing and organizing activities to build up a sense of community. As a prelude to the main topic, news, politics, and actions, we thank Hasan for fostering a sense of unity in his China Maxing series. Now we want to do our fair part as Chengdu audience to welcome our comrades to check out our weekly meetups in Chengdu. DM me for location. We have friends everywhere. Our new Bilibili channel. What the hell? How am I not invited to the Chinese cookout amongst the Chinese fans? How is that possible? Now I got to go back. Now I got to go back. Now I got to go back. It's crazy. You did an RSVP? Okay. You would have ignored it like any other message? Probably not. Stop being parasocial. We need our spaces on. That's crazy. You would lower the Chinese IQ if you joined the party with your American brain. Okay, everybody calm down. I guess I just have another reason to go back now. But yeah, my the point I was trying to make here is that there shouldn't be so brand unfriendly. Not even your fan clubs invite you. Yeah, I guess that's what's going on. So, what was I gonna say? Oh, the structure that currently exists has no room for wage laborers. There's no pension structure, and Social Security doesn't go. Social Security is not enough for survival. So the structure that currently exists makes little capitalists out of everyone, and we present that as financial literacy, right? And obviously, you should have that financial literacy, and you should become a little capitalist at the end of the day if you want to survive. That's why I always tell people, like, obviously, you know, you should have a 401k, or you should have some structure to make sure that you have a retirement plan, a retirement fund, even if it's like virtually impossible for normal people to retire at any age at this point, because you have to exist within reality. You have to live in reality, right? But it's crazy to me that a lot of people actually dunk on these people when, in fact, even a person making like $6 million over their entire lifetime of wage labor burns through all of that through, you know, stupid decisions, certainly, right? Because they're probably outspending however much money they're making and not putting enough on the side so that they have a retirement fund, but should still have a pension structure or should still have a social security structure that allows them to have like a basic living standards met. But that's not the case. That's why you see like that's why you see, you know, NBA players like homeless and shit sometimes.
Themselves into trouble by assuming that they will always make that much money. In the past, most financial professionals would generally agree that beyond a certain income level, you can just brute force your way through a lot of dumb financial decisions. And as long as you maintain that income, you'd have to try pretty hard to not get richer every year. But today, financial hardship amongst the top 1% of income earners has gone from a rare cautionary tale to the majority. And ironically, one of the biggest groups contributing to this trend are those same financial professionals. So if this data is to be believed, one of two things have happened. Either rich people have gotten a lot dumber with their money, or certain industries have just gotten a lot better at taking it from them.
Most people live paycheck to paycheck in New York City.
I have more money anxiety almost now than I ever did in my 20s.
For 4,900.
Yeah, high injury risk sports is also precarious labor, contract to contract. Exactly. You get one injury and you're done. Your career is over, and then you have no more stable income.
$65 before taxes and fees.
A concrete square in the Mexico City Stadium, $700 or $1,450 for a view of the stadium.
By the way, going back to what that other chatter was saying, that I find really funny is like you retain ownership over 100% of your IP is such a funny way to operate. What am I supposed to do? Like, yeah, dude, I am the content. What am I supposed to do? I'm a human being. Like, what am I supposed to do? And even then, I don't even retain ownership over my own IP, and I tell people they can do whatever the they want with it. But like, it's so, I am very open about this. Like, where, you know, you can do whatever the you want with the IP, make money on your own if you want to chop it up and repost it on whichever platform you see fit. That's why there's a lot of people that have literally paid for their colleges, paid for their college education through the Hasanabi Clips industrial complex and shit like that. But it is funny to like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, unless you use it maliciously. But how could I? What is a way in which I can like give other people like what pieces of my body? Like, what can I possibly do in that situation? Like, give us your nail clippings? Yeah, I don't know.
In Singapore.
It doesn't matter whether you make, you make $100,000 or not.
Sometimes when parsing through economic data, it's important to see the funny side in it all. And one of the funniest developments of the last decade is the growing levels of inequality amongst the top 1%. According to studies conducted by UBS and Altrata, there are between 50 and 60 million millionaires in the world at the moment. But even amongst this group of extremely wealthy global residents, the top 1% amongst them still holds almost a third of their collective wealth. Now, these studies were tracking accumulated wealth rather than annual income, but it still showed the same problem. Nobody feels poorer every day than really rich people. Except for very particular careers like service staff, people overwhelmingly interact with other people from within their general income grouping. If you work an upper middle class professional job, there is a good chance your partner also works a middle class professional job. You will live in a neighborhood with other upper middle class professionals, your friends from college would have gone on to get similar middle class jobs, and your kids will probably go to school with other kids from other middle class families. An article published by the Journal of Nature that tracked over 72 million Facebook connections found that socioeconomic status was the main determinant of who you are friends with. This means that day in and day out, you are going to interact with people living a somewhat similar lifestyle to your own. Sure, within this group, there will be some differences in take-home pay. Your neighbors might be a rung above you on the corporate ladder, and you might feel the need to keep up with their new cars or nice vacations. But apart from a few small details, people 10% below you and people 10% above you on the income.
I think a part of this kind of wealth class segregation is also directly a consequence of not having public transit. Like not having adequate public transit, not living in cities where you are surrounded by people. It's like suburban existence. 100%. 100,000%. Hasan is bourgeois non-intelligentsia. Yes. Is social democracy in America even possible without imperialism? No. Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's just, as it stands, there is no social democracy without imperialism. But the point is, the point is like, that is also a byproduct of this design. That is also a byproduct of the way that we stay isolated. Even if you were to take advantage of like public parks, for example, that automatically, if you're like a wealthy person and you go to the fucking public park, you're going to end up interacting with people of different financial backgrounds, as opposed to like any sort of public initiative that is open to every single member of society will automatically allow you to interact with different parts of the wealth caste structure that exists in the United States of America. And one of the best versions of this is obviously through commuting. It's just that not only do we have less and less third spaces in general, but we also don't even have commuting, with the exception of like New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago. But even in those places, there is like a different way that upper middle class people can commute, because the alternative is not easier. The alternative is not efficient. If the alternative, if public transit is inefficient, then yeah, people are going to not take it. They're going to take other forms of transit, which is still isolating.
Distribution spectrum are going to live the same kind of life. In other words, within your social circle, inequality usually isn't that extreme. The study also found this to be true for households with the lowest incomes. They overwhelmingly interacted with other low-income households, which had a negative impact on economic mobility. The old adage of, it's who you know, not what you know, is unfortunately absolutely true. And if the only people you know aren't in a position to give you any special favors, it's much harder to get ahead regardless of ability. But that's a separate issue that
You don't make friends on the subway. It's not about making friends, chatter. You're misunderstanding me. You don't have to become like lifelong friends with these people. It's more so about like whatever kind of information that you're picking up about the way that people exist. Like it's about your neighbors. It's about commuting alongside people that are of different financial backgrounds, that helps you develop a greater understanding. Even if you are literally sitting next to someone, you end up retaining information from that experience that I think expands your consciousness and expands your understanding, even if you are not directly aware of it, as opposed to having it be out of sight and out of mind.
I don't have time to get into today. Where this gets really interesting, though, is by moving the scale all the way to the top. It's only here that extreme inequality is visible within a decile of wealth. If you earn $500,000 a year as an analyst at a private equity firm, you are wealthy by almost anybody's standards. But compared to your general partner who is making $10 million a year, you are basically destitute. Basically, nowhere else on the income spectrum would you be working alongside someone else that made 20 times more than you. That general partner will also be raising money from billionaire investors who, by comparison, make them look poor. And then when those mere single-digit billionaires fly to Davos, they are going to be rubbing shoulders with other business people several hundred times richer than them. There are several orders of magnitude in income and wealth variance within just the top 1%, which means lifestyle comparison is far more damaging. If you work as a roofer, your colleagues might convince you that you need to lease a new F-150. If you work in a hedge fund, your colleagues might convince you to fly private to Art Basel for the networking. This is part of the reason why people making only $200,000 to $300,000 a year were doing significantly better financially in the Goldman Sachs study. On average, these people were still living in the real world and were largely exposed to other normal people. Demographers have dubbed this.
Yeah, basically they're saying that if you're in the 200 to 300,000 bracket, you're wealthy. You're so wealthy that you are the wealthiest person in your friend group, and therefore your expenditures still are closer to like the average person, as opposed to people making 500K and above, who then become the poorest wealthy person, and your expenditures change as well, and it also makes you feel like you're broke in comparison to your peers. Like basically the richest person living in the richest person still connected to the working class in some way, shape, or form is feeling a lot wealthier than the poorest person in the highest tax bracket.
Socioeconomic fractality.
Skinniest guy at fat camp. Kind of, exactly. This is why I always say like wealth is a relative concept. Like the feeling of wealth and prosperity is an entirely relative concept. That's why while when I was growing up, I grew up in a very affluent family in Turkey, but the overall wealth that my family had in Turkey was nothing in comparison to like the upper middle class in America. It's even more this difference is even larger when you think about when you move beyond the national boundary.
And it was actually first observed by Vilfredo Pareto when he was poring over tax documents more than 100 years ago. You may know this guy from the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, so that's pretty cool. But in the 100 years since this was first observed, some things have changed. Recent booms in global wealth have further divided this tiny group of wealthy people, and that's done two things. The first is that it's created absolutely hilarious situations that you are all welcome to point and laugh at. Like this guy complaining in a local Palo Alto paper that billionaires building their mega mansions were,
Hey, Shoe Squire, thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
And I quote, running roughshed over average millionaires like himself. This is unironically just one of many, many instances of millionaires complaining about how hard they have it now. But while it's fun to laugh, there is something more here. Inequality has always existed. And as dumbfounding as the recent spike in millionaires living paycheck to paycheck is, it does shine some light on some other concerning developments. So it's time to learn how many works to find out how the top 1% got so good at bankrupting themselves. This week's video is sponsored by FlexiSpot and their new E7 Pro standing desk. FlexiSpot has been making ergonomic workstations for years, focusing on helping people stay comfortable and productive, especially if you spend a lot of time at the computer like I do. The E7 Pro is their upgraded dual monitor standing desk with a 440-pound static load capacity and a height range from 25 to 50.6 inches. It's surprisingly stable even at full height, and it comes with a 15-year warranty and a 30-day risk-free return window. As you can imagine, I spend a lot of time at my desk, whether it's creating videos or gaming.
This links back to the Whistle Diesel's response to his tax evasion case. He somehow went bootlicking for billionaires because he got for registering his Ferrari in Montana.
Being able to change height throughout the day has genuinely helped my back and made long sessions a lot more bearable. And for any keyboard and mouse gamers out there like me, you don't have to worry about your monitor shaking and messing up your aim. FlexiSpot is also running their Black Friday sale right now with discounts up to 80% and even a chance at completely free orders.
The official One Piece anime account replied
to you. They offer
to
extra discounts for students, teachers, medical workers, military, and recent grads too. If you're on a tighter budget, the regular E7 is also a good option. If you want to check it out, head to flexispot.com and use my code HMW30 at checkout to save an extra $30. And if you end up grabbing one, leave a note with my channel name to help support the channel. Okay.
Everybody recognizes that Kuma is the GOAT now.
So the extreme concentration of wealth at the very top of the distribution has become more pronounced over recent years. But it's not new just by itself. Merely wealthy people have always been exposed to extremely wealthy people. Just because they have gone from 100 times wealthier to 400 times wealthier doesn't really change the arithmetic of inadequacy. What this has changed though is how expensive it is to be a rich person. Now, the most obvious example of this is the cities people are living in. Unless you are running your own business or working as a specialist doctor, there are really only a few cities in America with jobs that pay more than $500,000 a year, and the house prices in all of these cities are amongst the most expensive on the planet. If you want an average family home within commuting distance of Seattle, Silicon Valley, Manhattan, or even Miami, you are going to be paying 7 figures for the privilege. Put a 50-year mortgage on that, and then after income, property, and state taxes, in most of these centers, that is going to leave you with around $50,000 a year in actual disposable income. Now, I know what you were thinking. $50,000 a year after taxes and housing are accounted for would be a dream for most families.
Yeah.
And you would be absolutely right. But there are 2 reasons why for many ultra-high income earners, it's not. The first reason is quite simply that just because someone is earning a high income does not mean that they are smart with money, or even that smart in general. People who choose high prestige careers are, rather shockingly, often motivated by, well, prestige, which means they will happily go into debt to keep up appearances around their peers. $50,000.
I think this is the part of the equation that is unironically, simply put, financial irresponsibility. I think this is financial irresponsibility. If you're a high earner and you're making $500,000 a year and you're just like burning through that, you're spending way too much money. Like, that is crazy. That is insane. Like, I don't even understand how that's possible. Okay? I do not understand how that is possible. Because, like, you can live a very, very comfortable life. You can live a very comfortable life at that level of income without overextending yourself. Okay? Like, I don't even know. I don't even fully understand. Like, we donate a lot to charity to a fault. I mean, I donate a lot to charity. I'm just saying that it's just not, you can still do it in a reasonable way. And those guys aren't buying yachts. $500,000 a year, you can't buy a yacht. Yacht is for like $10 million a year and above, probably, I assume. But even if you have kids and shit, like, I don't know. Like, maybe the Lambo, yeah, that would be a very irresponsible financial decision. I think that's probably what it is, right? I think a lot of people also dump a shitload of their money immediately into houses, like a big ass house or something. I wasn't paying attention. I thought we were talking about higher earners. Yeah, if you're making $500,000 a year, you are a higher earner. You're in the top 1% of wealth. But it just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
After taxes and housing can easily pay for a comfortable lifestyle, but it doesn't cover a luxurious lifestyle. People who land high-income roles also have a sense of entitlement to these luxuries, since it often takes years of highly competitive schooling to get there. So once they have made it through all of that and landed their first real job, it's time to treat themselves. Of course, the career path where this is most common is medical doctors. An article published by the British Medical Journal, as well as a separate survey from the University of Pennsylvania, found that most American physicians were graduating medical school.
How did your experience becoming rich differ, if you don't mind explaining? I mean, I am obsessed with doing the same shit that I've been doing. When I was making $60,000 a year, I was doing the exact same thing that I'm doing now. So the only thing that has changed is that, like, there has been a tremendous quality of life improvement in terms of things that I can pay for, right? I no longer have to do the same calculations that I used to have to do, like, you know, paying for Uber and whether or not I will be able to actually pay for rent at the end of the month, right? Like, those are the massive. I used to describe it as such. Okay, being poor is very costly. Okay, being poor is incredibly expensive, and it's like a consistent weight on you. Okay, there's a tremendous amount of weight on your shoulders at any given moment, and a lot of rich people, especially a lot of rich people who have been rich for a very long time, lose sight of that reality. What people consider to be like being frugal is a normal day-to-day existence when you are a working class person who is, yeah, man, why are you telling me this? I don't know. Someone just asked. I'm just basically responding to their question. So So for someone like myself, like instead of having to, when I travel for work, right? Like I'm going to Ireland, right? In the past, if I had to travel, one, I would have to make the travel arrangements myself, right? I would have to make travel arrangements myself, and I wouldn't have enough money to make those travel arrangements. So I had to like nickel and dime it. I had to like literally talk to the university that's sending me there to make sure that they made sure that my travel arrangements were decent. And if they didn't have money to fly me out, then I would have to, pay for it myself or the hotel myself and stuff like that. And then I had to figure out which hotel I could stay at and how cheap the travel accommodation would look like from the hotel to the university, stuff like that. These are all of the things that you have to worry about, right? I no longer have to worry about that at all. Like I no longer have to worry about that. And that is a major burden. That is a major, major, major burden that is lifted. Not having to worry about bills or being able to pay for bills is a major burden lifted off your shoulders. So like in many respects, there is a reason why once you get to a certain level of wealth or a certain level of like of wages, you're financially set and you are happy, and then your happiness metrics start you start getting diminishing returns. I forget what it was, but I'm pretty sure it's like closely tracked with whatever the stability level is for whichever city you live in, whichever country you live in. Once you get beyond that, it's not associated with happiness at all, and it has like diminishing returns. The difference between like making $10 million a year and making $1 billion a year has no impact on your happiness levels whatsoever. Back in the day, when they used to do these studies, it was around $100,000, right? Like beyond $100,000. Now, obviously, that number is probably far higher than that because $100,000 in a place like Los Angeles actually doesn't it doesn't offer you a level of comfort, right? So, as far as like my own personal experiences goes, a major burden has been lifted off my shoulders as far as like having to nickel and dime every single thing that I do. And also beyond that, I have people that I pay that can deal with this stuff, right? That's another major burden lifted off of my shoulders, that I don't have to like make these arrangements and things of that nature. And also, instead of like flying economy as a 6'4", 240-pound guy, now I can fly business, which is infinitely more expensive than economy. But when you fly business, then now I can sleep when I'm on the flight, right? So all of that stuff has been a tremendous quality of life adjustment, a quality of life improvement. But overall, it hasn't turned into, the way that I'm accumulating wealth has not changed because I'm not engaging in like in capital accumulation, and therefore I enjoy what I do, and that's a big part of the reason why I still do the exact same things for virtually the same exact hours that I do, because I'm incredibly fortunate, incredibly privileged, and therefore I greatly enjoy what I do and can do it. But that's the reason why I said like not much has changed in terms of my output or my day-to-day existence. I was doing 8 hours a day live streaming in 2020, and I'm still, maybe 6 to 7 hours a day live streaming in 2025. Yeah, I shouldn't have said 6 to 7. Everyone's going to get... The dinners are better, let's be real, for sure. No, the dinners are better, the clothes are better, the travel accommodations are better. Yes, all of it is better. But I'm saying, like, I think people that get to a level of financial success get there specifically so that they can actually put aside a tremendous amount of the wealth that they've accumulated so that they can have their money make money for them, passive income, so they don't have to work. Do you understand? And then they just like travel around the world or engage in whatever the they want to engage in. Like they don't, the goal in the United States of America under capitalism is to get to a point where your money makes money for you, so you don't actually have to work at all. Become a capital owner. That is the final stage, is the highest stage of capitalism, is when you actually move from the wage laboring class to the class that no longer needs wage labor and can do wage labor specifically for fun if they choose to do so. Okay? That's when you that's when you have succeeded. And the entire system is designed for those who are for those who reach that level of success, oftentimes at this point through sheer luck more than anything else, is the system is designed so you don't actually have to work at all. You can just engage in capital accumulation. That's it. There are unimaginable amounts of safeguards to make sure that once you reach the level of capital ownership, if you're not taking like tremendous risks, you can just kind of stay there, right? The way I see it basically is if your net worth or the growth in your net worth, if 51% of it is coming from your wages, you are still closer to a proletarian structure as opposed to 51% of it coming from your capital accumulation, at which point you've become a capital owner. Obviously, this is not a well-defined, obviously it's not a well-defined and like a complete, like there's differences from person to person. It varies. But that I think is the way to make this class assessment. That's kind of immortal? No, nowhere near that of being a landlord. You mean immoral or immortal? I do think landlords who have a job are capitalists, though. Yes. I'm saying that if you quit your job tomorrow and you can still have the same level of comfort and the same level of existence because your capital accumulation will make up for it, that means you are a capital owner. Simply put, if you can just stop working, stop relying on wages entirely, and still engage in the act of capital accumulation that will allow you to maintain your level of comfort, that means you are a capital owner, even if you are working. Okay? That is part of the reason why there are small business owners, for example, who own and operate their own business. Small business owners who own and operate their own business, if they were to stop working and they were to delegate that responsibility to like a manager or something, and can still take the profits off the top and still maintain their same comfortable existence, means that they are capital owners. And the goal in American society in general is basically to get to that point. That is the success. That's when you retire, right? That is what a retirement is. And unfortunately, there is virtually no other way. There is virtually, as it stands, no other way to exist as a retiree. Because once you are no longer a productive laborer, once you've moved beyond the age and physical status of being a potential productive laborer, you have to survive by being a capital owner. That's what a 401k is. In a perfect society, you wouldn't need a 401k. That the government would be able to take care of you alongside your pension structure or alongside like whatever kind of compensation structure that exists that continues to make sure that you can survive. Not that it matters, because I feel like we're not there for many Americans. Many Americans will never get to that level regardless. As is the way that the society is designed, is that you're not, even with a 401k, it's virtually impossible for you to retire at a reasonable age or even own a home.
Well, with practically zero financial literacy. And yes, despite the name, the British Medical Journal judges us here in America too. Anyway, this doesn't actually make doctors that unique by itself. Most people have practically zero financial responsibility. The difference is that because of their much higher than average incomes, people like doctors are given access to far more dangerous financial tools right from the beginning. When you add in the fact that these young graduates are also already comfortable with having taken out six-figure debt to get through medical school in the first place, it's really easy for a bank to sell them a big home loan and a car loan on top of that. Even seasoned financial professionals can get in trouble with this stuff if they are not careful. So, giving this much rope to someone without a clue is very dangerous. It would be like skipping through to the end of a very challenging video game and giving yourself a max level character. Theoretically, you have all the right tools to deal with endgame content. But unless you actually know what you are doing, you can easily get yourself into trouble if even the smallest thing goes wrong. Now, doctors get a lot of attention for this, because financial stress amongst practitioners has been connected to worse patient outcomes, which is bad for—
What are you talking about, man? This is not what being retired. What is? As a retiree, you set aside your wages to cover the retirement of your elders, and so does the next generation, etc. I'm confused as to what you're saying. I'm saying that currently, as it stands, without becoming without engaging in any sort of capital accumulation, you literally cannot retire and live as a normal person, because Social Security is so marginal, it's so minuscule. Like I understand that you're describing Social Security, ironically enough, except in this country, unfortunately, Social Security is not enough for survival. You might not be an American, and that's why you're frustrated with what I'm saying, but in the United States of America, Social Security compensation is nowhere near enough for survival.
Everybody. But they are not alone. Even finance bros who should, theoretically, be good at this stuff frequently take on too much debt to keep up with everybody around them and find themselves living paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, high-income earners not being as smart as they think they are may come as a shock to them, but maybe not so much as a shock to you. But the second reason why financial hardship has become so common amongst these people is because companies have realized that this is where the money is now, and they have rushed in to fill any gaps in their budget.
Yeah, there is a new meta, I think, in the service industry and in commodity producers in general, to hyper focus on the ultra wealthy, like people making 500 grand a year plus, and they considering that it is 50%. The top 10% of wealth is responsible for 50% of all consumption in the United States of America. There is like all of the growth sectors right now basically serve that top 10% of wealth. And ironically enough, part of that is also the boomers, because that's where a lot of the wealth is trapped as it stands currently. That's why you see a lot of like incredibly scammy retirement home projects and shit like that. There are entire industries that are there to extract what remains of the wealth from the wealthiest Americans, whether it be all the boomers that, you know, have to live in retirement homes, or whether it be people making $500,000 plus a year, and entire sectors that are designed to serve them.
The old team at Micro did a great video a few months ago about the hyperinflation of the hyper-wealthy. I will leave a link to it below if you are interested in the details. But the rough summary is that the number of products, services, and experiences dedicated exclusively to extremely wealthy people has exploded in recent years. 20 years ago, there was only one production car that retailed for more than $1 million, and that was the Bugatti Veyron. Today, even after accounting for inflation, there are more than 100 different models in this price range, and new offerings frequently cost in excess of $5 million. This is a clear example, but even for people at the plebeian end of the—
Yeah, like yachts, okay? There is a growing and robust industry of yachts, and people that work on yachts, people that service yachts. That's for like maximum 10,000 people on the planet, okay? And even then you have super yachts on top of the yachting industry. Private jet services, exactly. Private jet charters and private jet services have grown. How the f is that even feasible in this economy is something that you might be asking yourself. And that is because the only people that are making money right now and have disposable income are the super wealthy. Yeah, bunker makers, that's another one. Like industries that are specifically designed to serve like 10,000 people maximum, right? Maybe 100,000 people maximum. Maybe 1 million people maximum. And then it goes from there. Private security services, things of that nature. It isn't feasible in this economy because I'm poor. No, my point is it shouldn't be feasible in any economy. That is an industry that can only exist if there is tremendous amounts of wealth accumulation that is trapped at the top. These are industries that unironically should not exist. These are industries that only exist because there is this level of wealth concentration at the top. Like, the industries themselves are all unethical, whatever. That's not even what I'm not even making like a moral case here. What I'm simply stating is that if we had a better redistributive system in general, then these industries would not exist. Oh, guy is snoring. And it's gone from having only a couple people serving this super wealthy to a bunch of different competitive companies. And the only reason why these industries exist is because there's people, like, there's a smaller and smaller number of people that demand this level of like high profile treatment, this exclusive high profile treatment, because they're the only people that have any sort of disposable income to begin with.
1%, high-end hotels, credit cards, social clubs, sports, events, clothing, airline seats, even high-end gyms and grocery stores have all developed to offer an exclusive service at a massively inflated price. Not all high-income earners will buy this stuff, and even those who do won't buy all of it. But the point is that there are more options than ever at the buffet of conspicuous consumption, and even $500,000 a year won't buy.
I get your point from the standpoint of the enormous luxury they are, but luxury is subjective. Who's to say in a different system that the video games industry should not exist because they're a tremendous luxury? I mean, I understand the point that you're trying to make here. The difference is video games are accessible for virtually, for most people, okay? Mega yachts are not. Mega yachts are only accessible to people who have an unimaginable amount of wealth accumulation. Do you not get that? Like, that's not, like, there is not going to be a point for Veblen goods to be accessible to the regular public, because the entire point of Veblen goods is that their availability is capped. And the more limited it is, the more expensive it is. Now, I'm not talking about yachting as like a Veblen good, obviously, or a super yachts or whatever. I'm just simply stating that, like, these industries and the growth in these industries has exploded only due to the busted system that we currently have. In 1979 Paris, about 70% of the working class was laboring on high-end luxury goods only, clothes, furniture, etc. Some even used that fact to be anti-revolution. There will be no jobs left. I don't know. I feel like you're wrong. I know like 6 or 7 people with super yachts. Okay, you just wanted me to say 6, 7 so people spam it in the chat. Son of a bitch.
Buy all you can eat like it used to. Now again, I know it's hard to feel too bad for these people, but all of this still comes with 2 very big caveats. The first is that the only reason why high-income household budgets are being
Nostalgia Rhythm, thank you for the 10 gifted subs.
Targeted so hard is because the budgets of average incomes have already been optimally exploited. Between the various flavors of consumer debt and price increases, most people don't have.
We're not talking about purchases beyond survival. We're talking about purchases for goods and services that are priced in the school district budget range. Mentally illiterate chatters need to really stop typing. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that there should be no luxury at all. I'm saying that there is a difference between luxury for the working class versus luxury for the super wealthy. And if the luxury for the working class sectors are shrinking because the working class does not have disposable income, because wealth accumulation is staying at the top, and people that want to make money are basically focusing all of their efforts in the luxuries for the super wealthy, this is another byproduct of an unhealthy system.
That much left to give, which means companies are almost being forced to go up market to grow their revenue. I have mentioned it before, but even Walmart has attributed most of their recent sales growth to targeting higher income consumers, since most other households have already been maxed out. High income households are only starting to feel the pinch because everybody else has already been thoroughly juiced. Oh yeah. And the final most important
I like that this video is also making the same exact argument that I'm making, which
is that a lot of these high income households can still end up doing just fine in the long run. Their paycheck to paycheck isn't yet the same as everybody else's. Struggling to make the mortgage payments on a home in Seattle may be just as financially stressful as struggling to make rent. But in 30 years, those people should have fully paid off a home in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. High-income employees also get benefits like employer-funded retirement accounts or restricted stock units that can provide a scheduled liquidity boost even if they are living paycheck to paycheck for the rest of the year to cover their living expenses. Wealth inequality and income inequality go hand in hand, because if you earn a high income, you can build up wealth faster than someone with a lower income. But what we are seeing today is, thanks to massive asset price appreciation, you still won't be able to build wealth with your income faster than people can create income from their wealth. And remember, this is all just taking place within the top 1%. For everybody else, go and watch this video next to find out why you simply don't matter anymore. Economically
we watched this one, Why You Don't Matter Anymore, Economically Speaking, which was the first video that I watched from this channel, which was very good. And it was about the thing that I was talking about previously, which is that the top 10% of wealth is responsible for 50% of all purchases in the United States of America. And in a system that's designed like that, is going to reinforce the same exact class dynamic where 90% of regular Americans and regular ass people are simply going to be working to serve the top 10% of wealth forever, permanently, both in terms of wage laboring so that they can extract your surplus labor value in the form of profits, but also then directly serving them as well, because there's no other job availabilities. The amount of jobs that are available for serving the 90% are going to shrink, and the amount of jobs that are available that serve the top 10% of wealth are going to increase. And that is where we're moving. That's the direction that we're moving in right now. Drew Gooden made a video in a similar vein. And yeah, for the record, before people were saying like luxury is not a relative concept, the luxury goods are not subjective, just wait until healthcare is considered a luxury good, or non-poisoned food substitutes are considered scarce for the working class. At which point, it is actually a subjective concept. With the endless amount of greed that we see and the endless amount of control that the super wealthy have over regular governance with a deregulatory agenda, the food that is readily available to regular working class individuals is going to be poisoned because of the deregulation, right? This already exists with the class structure that exists for the environmental concerns, like access to a clean environment. Poorer neighborhoods on average have a worse water supply because toxic waste ends up making its way to poorer neighborhoods. There's a reason why there's like a higher level in the United States of America where, through redlining and through systemic racism, black people end up living in poorer neighborhoods, for example, and therefore they have a higher percentage or they have a higher likelihood of having childhood asthma develop in black children. The reason why they have that is because there's a lot less concern in terms of like their day-to-day existence. Their deregulation hits poorer neighborhoods on average way harder. Rich people can avoid that by living in wealthy neighborhoods where there's more care, poor ventilation, water supply being poisoned through toxic waste. Flint, Michigan is obviously one of the most salient examples of environmental racism that we've talked about. Yeah, Cancer Alley in Baton Rouge, New Orleans along the Mississippi River. What is this? New York Times posted this? No, this is the Washington Post. Why you may not want lower prices as much as you think you do. Though Americans might be clamoring for relief on groceries, housing, and energy costs, economists say there's a bigger downside to failing prices. Real five-head. This is the same thing that they're saying about China, where like the Chinese economy is suffering because things are too affordable. To your point about healthcare becoming a luxury good, consumer spending rose 0.6%. However, that spending is increasingly being focused on essential purchases such as healthcare at a time when income gains aren't keeping up. Exactly. Americans ramped up their spending in August. However, the cost of living were on the rise as food and other goods became even more expensive last month and services remained stubbornly high. Service prices. New economic data released Friday showed that consumer spending rose 0.6% in the key back-to-school shopping month of August and 0.4% when adjusting for inflation. That's further indication that a critical driver of the U.S. economy continues to chug along despite broader uncertainty and a slowdown in the labor market. However, that spending is increasingly being focused on essential purchases such as healthcare at a time when income gains aren't keeping up. The argument to make about relative luxuries like video games isn't that it's focused on high-cost services like yachts, etc. It's that capital accumulation wants to bring those services into their fold as well. Look at music festivals and how it excludes low-income workers to bring in high-income clientele. Coachella cost in 2015 was $325, and this year it's $649. Yeah, that too. And that is also for the lowest ticket purchase that you can make. That's before we even factor in like the availability of much, much higher levels of ticket purchase that you can get. Anyway, now we're going to move away from capitalism and its devastating impact on the average working class individual back to our current predicament, a war with Venezuela. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.